All right, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about something really important, the journey of parenting a child with special needs. It's a path that is, filled with this incredible, fierce love, but it also brings a unique kind of stress. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into the real data behind that feeling, bust a huge myth you've probably heard a million times, and then we'll uncover some powerful ways to help turn all that stress into real strength.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the two sides of this coin. The high points, the satisfactions, they're so profound. But the challenges, they are very real, and they can feel incredibly isolating. If you have ever felt just completely overwhelmed by it all, the most important thing for you to know is this. You are so far from being alone.
I mean, just look at this number. Research shows that 82% of parents of kids with special needs report feeling moderate to high levels of stress. Just let that sink in for a second. This number isn't here to scare you or bring you down, it's here to validate you. That feeling you have, it isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a shared reality, the reality of navigating a world that just wasn't built for your family.
So, first things first, let's just acknowledge it. The stress is absolutely real. And a huge chunk of that stress doesn't just come from the day-to-day challenges. A lot of it comes from misinformation. And there's one myth in particular that adds so much unnecessary fear to the journey. So right now, it's time we set the record straight.
I'm almost certain you've heard this one. Maybe at a conference, or you read it in some article online. This absolutely terrifying statistic that 80% of couples raising a child with special needs end up divorced. It gets repeated so often, it's just kind of accepted as fact. But is it? Is this fact, or is it fiction?
Well, let's see what the actual research says. That 80% figure, it's a complete myth, a total fabrication. While some studies do show a slightly higher risk for couples, it is nowhere near that number. Just take a look. For parents of kids with ADHD, the rate was around 23%. And this is where it gets really fascinating. For families raising a child with Down syndrome, the divorce rate was actually lower than in the comparison groups.
And just to put a final nail in that coffin, Dr. Brian Friedman, who led a massive population-based study, found, and this is a direct quote, no evidence that raising a child with autism spectrum disorder increases the risk of parents splitting up. So the big takeaway here is this. The stress is real, yes, but the idea that your marriage is doomed, that's a myth. The data just doesn't back it up.
So there we go. Step 1 is busting that destructive myth. Now, with that fear kind of pushed to the side, we can focus on the real sources of stress. So what are the actual day-to-day challenges that feel so overwhelming for families?
Well, what are the real villains here? Research and families themselves point to two huge challenges. First, what we can call information chaos. You know that feeling, that frustrating endless search for reliable guidance? And second, there's this constant worry about the future, something parents have nicknamed the services cliff.
So what exactly is the services cliff? Well, it's that moment, usually around age 22, when a child with disabilities ages out of the school-based support system they've known their entire life. And then, all of a sudden, they have to switch over to this really complex, often confusing adult services system. For parents, just the thought of planning for this sudden drop-off is a massive source of long-term stress.
Okay, so let's talk about navigating this cliff. Because here's the thing. You don't have to just stand at the edge and wait. There are really concrete things you can do to prepare for this transition, things that can turn that feeling of dread into a real sense of control. And that right there, that's the key mindset shift. The solution isn't about just surviving the fall. It's about proactively building a bridge to the other side, piece by piece, long before you ever get there. This timeline is basically the blueprint for building that bridge. It breaks it all down. So at age 14, you make sure to add a transition plan to the IEP, that's the Individualized Education Program. Then, at 16, you can open a tax-free ABLE account to save for disability-related expenses. At 18, your child becomes a legal adult, so that's the time to apply for government benefits like SSI or SSDI, and figure out legal decision-making. And the goal is, by age 22, to already have adult services and a case manager lined up and ready to go.
And that's really it. Having a practical plan, a roadmap like this is one of the single most powerful tools you have. It reduces stress and lets you navigate that journey to adulthood with confidence because it transforms the big, scary unknown into a clear set of steps.
But, and this is a big but, there's a huge gap between knowing you need a plan and actually having one. Just think about this. 88% of parents have not set up a special needs trust, and that's a super critical legal tool that provides for your child financially without messing up their government benefits.
This gap, it represents a massive vulnerability for so many families. And that really gets to the heart of it all, right? Having a solid plan is absolutely essential, but it's only half the battle. No checklist, no legal trust can ever replace the other critical piece of the puzzle: human connection. You also need a lifeline. And the data here shows just how powerful that lifeline can be. It's not just a feeling. Research has found that parents who are in support networks see a 52% reduction in their stress. And look at this chart. Their risk for major depression drops by 60%. These connections aren't just nice to have. They are a proven, powerful mental health strategy.
So let's talk about this second core solution, your lifeline. And it's not about finding some single, all-knowing expert. It's about building a network of peers, of other people who truly get it because they're living it too.
So what makes these networks so transformational? Well, research points to these 4 pillars. First, there's emotional validation. That's just the incredible relief of being understood without having to explain yourself. Second, practical information sharing. Swapping those real-world tips you just can't get from a book. Third is advocacy empowerment, learning together how to fight for what your kids need. And finally, long-term community, building those family-like bonds that last a lifetime.
Let me tell you about Sarah. She felt totally alone after her son was diagnosed. But then she found a local parent group, and that crushing feeling of isolation was replaced with a roadmap. Today, she actually hosts her own online groups, turning what she went through into a beacon of hope for new parents. Her story just shows this incredible ripple effect that happens when one parent finds their lifeline.
So how in the world do you find these plans and these people in the middle of all that information chaos we talked about? Well, this is where modern tools can really make a difference. One example is a tool called Stella. It's a free AI-powered concierge that was actually built by parents on the same journey. And its whole purpose is to cut through all the noise and act like a personal guide, connecting families directly with the verified checklists and the supportive networks they need.
And that brings us full circle, doesn't it? The journey from stress to strength, it isn't about finding some single magic bullet. It's about combining these 2 incredibly powerful forces: a concrete, practical plan for what's ahead and a strong, supportive network for the day-to-day. When you have both of those things, you are truly empowered.
So we'll end with this question. We have the data, we understand the real challenges, we have the tools, and we have the roadmaps to navigate them. And we know the profound power of human connection. So the real question for all of us now is this: how will we use these tools to build the strong, empathetic, and truly supportive communities that can turn stress into strength for every single family?